We hit the jackpot when we found a piece of paradise, an untouched, secluded island, ringed with golden beaches and an endless bright blue ocean. It was a place that looked stolen from a postcard, a hidden gem our guide promised was known to only a few. My parents were ecstatic, the kind of ecstatic that blinds you to anything else. This was supposed to be the vacation that brought us closer together, a retreat from everything. Dad said it was safe here. The first evening after setting up our tents and unpacking, I realized we were the only ones here. Just us, stranded on a tiny slip of land in the middle of an endless ocean. Dad built a fire and we all gathered around. The stars were brighter than I'd ever seen, scattered like broken glass across the sky. The sand was blindingly white, and the water shimmered like 1,000 turquoise gemstones. It felt like a dream, a place where I could finally feel free. As the waves lapped against the shore, I heard something else. A faint, hissing sound drifting through the humid night. It was subtle, like wind slipping through the grass. I looked over my shoulder, but the jungle was just a mass of shadows, thick and endless. "It's just the breeze," Dad said, seeing how uneasy I felt. But he kept glancing at the tree line, his face tense. He heard it too. Mom wrapped her arms around herself as if the tropical air had suddenly turned cold. We sat around the campfire while Dad told ghost stories. Then we headed for bed. The next morning, that feeling of unease stayed with me. I walked the beach while my little brother Alex poked around the tide pools. The sand was covered in odd tracks, thin, winding lines that looped and tangled in patterns that didn't seem random. They reminded me of trails left by fingers dragged through sand. There were also those strange hollows, shallow depressions scattered here and there, like something had coiled up in the night resting just beyond our tents. Something caught my eye, a movement. Then I saw the first snake, a long, dark shape draped lazily across a driftwood log. Its olive-green ribbon of scales glistened like polished stones, and its eyes fixed on me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. Its forked tongue flicked in and out, tasting the air as if it recognized something in me. I froze, barely breathing as it raised its head and regarded me with an eerie calm. I tried to tell Mom, but she waved it off. "It's just a snake, sweetheart," she said, though her voice was shaky. "It's an island. I'm sure we will see more. Just be careful." But she couldn't relax. I saw her talking to Dad while she kept looking over her shoulder. Then she started packing up our things, muttering that we'd go inland further from the shore. We moved deeper into the island, setting up a new camp near a stream where lush trees grew in dense clusters, their branches woven together like green cages. As the wind blew, the air smelt of earth and decay. It was so quiet, like the jungle itself was holding its breath. But even as we tried to settle in, I could feel something was close, lurking just beyond the line of trees. As night fell, the hissing returned, louder this time, echoing from all around us. We saw more snakes, dozens of them curled in trees, lying in the open sand and gliding in and out of the water. There were big ones coiled and thick as my arm and small ones that wriggled through the grass like worms. They moved together in a way that didn't feel natural to me. It felt planned. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that snake, its dark eyes, its tongue tasting the air as if it were hunting. I'd turn over and the darkness seemed alive, filled with shadows that writhed and slithered. The following morning, I woke to find Mom's sleeping bag empty. At first, I thought she'd gone to gather wood or get water, but when Dad called her name, there was no answer. He searched the surrounding trees, his face growing paler with every step. Finally, he found a trail, a smooth, slithering line that disappeared into the thick underbrush alongside a few scattered footprints that sank deep into the damp earth. We searched the island for hours calling her name, our voices swallowed by the quiet of the jungle. We never found her, not even a trace. Dad was desperate to stay hopeful, to keep looking, but I saw the fear in his eyes. He knew, just as I did, that she was gone, that something had taken her. He tightened his grip on my shoulder, his hands trembling as he looked toward the trees. "Stay close," he whispered, barely a sound. The island felt different now, darker somehow, as if the very air had thickened, trapping us in a heavy, invisible net. The snakes were everywhere. They slithered in the trees, dangled from branches, curled under rocks. They watched us, their eyes glittering with that strange, intelligent calm, like they understood something we didn't. Alex stayed close to me, his small hand clinging to mine. He tried to be brave, but he was just a kid, and I could feel him shaking as he glanced over his shoulder searching for Mom. Dad barely slept, staying up to keep watch, though there was no keeping track of all those eyes hidden in the trees. On the third night, the hissing grew louder, more insistent, filling the air like a chorus of voices. It was then that the snakes seemed to emerge from everywhere, filling the space around us. They slipped out of the shadows, gathering like soldiers awaiting a silent command. Dad swung a branch to keep them at bay, but it was no use. They moved closer, surrounding us. And then, in a moment I'll never forget, they lunged. Alex screamed as they coiled around his legs, dragging him to the ground. He thrashed, trying to pull free, his small hands reaching out to me. I screamed, clawing at the snakes, but there were too many. They were too strong, their coils tightening like ropes, pulling him from my grasp. I couldn't save him. By morning, it was just me. Dad had vanished in the night, and the only trace of him was a faint trail through the sand, a path that twisted and coiled before disappearing into the jungle. I was alone now with nothing but the constant, rhythmic hissing that had become part of the island itself. Days passed in a blur, every hour marked by the slow, steady advance of the snakes. They didn't strike, didn't chase, just watched, their eyes dark and endless. They seemed to wait as if they knew I had nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Now I sit on the edge of the water staring out at the horizon, praying for a boat, for a sign of life, for anything that could take me from this cursed place. But the island feels alive, pulsing with a dark energy, its shadows filled with slithering bodies, a prison without walls. The snakes close in each night, their bodies weaving closer, their hissing like a whisper in my ear. I wonder if this island has always been like this, if others have come here and never left, their voices lost to the chorus. The darkness presses in, and I can almost feel their scales on my skin, cool and unyielding, waiting for me to take one final fateful step. Dad said it was safe here. He lied.